Skipster is the guest management platform used by top event teams for everything from guest lists to seating charts and online invitations. If you're looking for next-generation event software that helps deliver perfect guest experiences, head over to Skipster's website. It's Skipster, ZKIPSTER.com to try a free event.
Are you a
Okay, so we're gonna be
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here are your hosts, BizBash CEO David Adler and Editor-in-Chief Beth Kormanik.
Hi, David.
Hey, Beth, here we are. We're starting off the new year with another GatherGeeks.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
And to all of our GatherGeeks listeners. For our first episode of 2020, you spoke with Amanda Ma, the CEO of Innovate Marketing Group in Pasadena, California. She's going to discuss protocol at events with a multicultural audience, in particular Chinese and other Asian cultures. So this is going to include food preparation, entertainment, business customs, and more, as well as advice on numerals, colors, gifts, and event room layouts to make them welcoming for groups. And she's going to break down the protocol difference between Chinese, Korean, Thai, and Japanese cultures, and much more. David, there's a lot here.
There's a ton here. And this came out of my work I've done with the State Department to make me appreciate how important this part of the world is, this part of protocol is, in terms of every sort of group that you work with, to understand the nuances of what really makes them feel welcome.
Right. Important and complex
as
well.
Yeah.
And this episode is well-timed since Chinese New Year is coming up on Saturday, January 25th. FYI, it's the year of the rat. What does that mean? Let's listen and find out.
So, Amanda, we're here today to talk about multicultural audiences at events, and we're going to talk about the Asian market for the most part. Give us an example of the markets of the people that you are the most familiar with in terms of the Asian and the Japanese culture. What makes an event in the U.S. different when you deal with those kinds of cultures here?
Sure. We definitely do a lot of multicultural events, and like you said, a lot are, Chinese or Japanese focused. So like Zojurushi, for example, is one of them, or like East West Bank, even though at the end of the day, some of them do market to the American market. Mm-hmm. And what makes them really different, because a lot of times there's a lot of culture sensitivities and etiquette. And because our agency, my background is Chinese myself. So I'm very aware of these kind of like protocols. So we always make sure like these are implemented. And the best way for any planner is always making sure you ask, like, are you guys sensitive to these protocols? And some clients actually don't care, but a lot of them do. So we make sure we ask about these things, from like the whole language barrier to incorporating historical references to food preparation to, even as simple as the starting time, right? And the symbol, colors, numbers, the words. And just knowing all the major culture celebrations. We don't want to be doing an event when it's Lunar New Year, because nobody will attend because they're all busy with their families.
And so the cultural sensitivities that we're going to talk about are the language barriers, the historic references, food preparation, starting times, symbols, numbers, colors, words, and important cultural celebration days. So let's start off with, why is the number 8 auspicious, and why number 4 means death, and how does that implicate itself into the event world?
Awesome question, David. So the number 8 in Chinese, it's the way it sounds. It's pronounced fa, and it also sounds like fa, which means prosperity in Chinese. So Asian people love it. If they're sitting at table 8, people get really excited, and just like really funny. People look for even like houses with the number 8, even checking accounts with number 8. 4, same thing. It just, the way it sounds, 4 in Chinese is 4. So it sounds like death in Chinese, just like the way it sounds.
So I hear you skip 4, 40, and 49 the way we skip, not we, but that way 13 is left out of hotel floors and building floors.
Yeah, so correct. We have some, clients that we do Asian events for. So because they understand the sensitivity, then, we skip all the number 4, we skip all the 40 to 49 because they want to make sure, we take that into account. And it's people, a lot of time with hotel, they don't understand. They're like, wait, I thought we only have 500 people, but we're, at table 59. And then we have to remind them, yes, because we skipped 40 to 49 and table 4. And they're like, oh, okay, yes.
Wow. And so also I hear that in the American culture, we see a lot of white parties. And that is the ultimate bad thing, right, in Chinese culture?
Yeah. So usually when we do all white, is usually reserved for funeral. So making sure, you don't really see a lot of Asian events with all white because that's is for funerals. But on the other hand, they love the color red. So feel free to use that a lot. Red is often associated with good luck. So during, a lot of celebrations, whether it's hotel grand openings to major company launches or Lunar New Year, you see a lot of people using the color red or wearing the color red, actually.
Oh, that's interesting. So this is definitely a good thing to know, even if you have a minority of people in that culture, right? To be respectful, or is that, at what point do people assimilate into sort of the American culture? It doesn't matter, or is it always the case that you have to be sensitive to this?
I think that goes back to the original, being like asking that question. So some clients do care and some clients do not.
Yeah.
So just, checking in like, hey, how, maybe their brand color is white, right? So we're coming up with an idea like, hey, let's do an all white party. But we do understand, you have a lot of Asian people attending this event. Is this going to be okay? Because in their culture is a no-no. Or maybe they are Asian company and then just checking in. And some, I would say most of the time they will say, let's just stay away from that because why get into it?
So here's another one that I found really interesting that I did not know that most Asian people or a lot of Asian people are lactose intolerant. Tell us the story about how you dealt with that.
Sure. I mean, we were doing a 2,000 people, corporate retreat. And then we were negotiating with the hotel on the venue contract. And then, at one point the hotel's like, okay, fine. We want to bring your group here. Let me throw in a cheese platter or cheese station for you guys. And then so our team was like, actually, did we mention that these are like 2,000 Asian people? So instead of, cheese, can we get fruit instead? Because most Asians are actually lactose, so we don't want them spend all afternoon in the restroom. And then the hotel folks were like laughing so hard. They're like, we did not know. We're like, yeah, fruit, cookies, anything else other than cheese.
Yeah, wow. Wow, that's so interesting. And also, what's the deal now with round tables versus square tables?
So again, it's like Asian people just have a lot of symbols and number and color that they really care about. And round table is also a good symbol because it's like in Chinese is indicated as yuan yuan man man, which is like very round and happy and, it's like really nice. And then square is not so much because it has like sharp corners. So like a lot of the clients then will also ask them like, normally we love doing long tables, because it just has that very striking look and then in a space. Or we like to change it up. Let's make some rounds with squares or a rectangle. But when it comes to like Asian client or people marketing to Asian, they say, that's usually something we'll bring up and say, hey, like, is that a concern? Because round tables, they do like round tables more. And this is one area, where always that they are very sensitive to too. They'll say, no, we want the round table because we want the good luck.
Good luck. So
with red linen, with the number 8.
Yeah, we got to figure everything. You got to know a lot.
Yeah.
I heard that you guys do a lot of grand openings and celebrations. Anything that we should know or not know from that experience?
Definitely. So when it comes to grand openings, like make sure you book a lion dance. That's always very popular.
Always at an opening.
I would say yes for openings and grand openings. So we do a lot of hotel openings, bank openings, and lion dance is very auspicious, right? So lion dance it symbolizes like good fortune and blessing on the business. So you see a lot of these business like that's not even a lot of time we already know that's one of the light items. It's just as standard as a photographer that we need to hire as flowers.
Oh, so it's part of the decor. But what is the odd numbers that you really want to book them in odd numbers? What does that mean?
Yeah, it just so the lion dance, and I learned this actually from my vendor too. They were telling me like 9, 11, 13 for lion dance is like the number of lions, right? So each lion has 2 people that's doing the performance, but it's really they counted by the lion, and then the odd numbers are very auspicious. So you want to make sure you book them in those sequence to make sure they bring you the best of luck.
Wow. And what is the lion dance?
Lion dance? I'm so glad you asked. So a lot of times, people get confused between a lion dance and a dragon dance. Dragon, it has more people involved. Lion dance, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's just 2 dancers that's inside one lion. One acts as the head, and the other one acts as the body. And then they also, there's a whole ensemble.
Oh, wait a minute. Now I understand. So I was a little confused. Mm-hmm. The lion dance is what we were talking about before, but the cabbage eating lion dancers, is that different or is that the same thing? What's the difference?
It's the same. So it's actually part of the act.
It's part of the act. Okay. This is a standard act that goes back thousands of years.
Yes, very long time. It's like traditional in the Asian culture.
Okay. And explain what the actual thing is.
Sure. They usually dance around, to give you an example, when we do a hotel opening, they usually start outside of the hotel, and then there's a whole dance troupe that's also part of it. So there's drums, there's a gong, so it's very loud, super loud and very festive. So they start outside and then they kind of work their way in, and wherever you want them to bless. So for hotel, then we'll have them go into all the important places. For banks, we definitely always make sure they bless the vault. That's very important. And then we will always prepare lettuce and red pocket for the lion, because lettuce symbolize a fresh start and also good fortune, and then really blessing the business. And then the red pocket, it usually has cash in it. It's also for good luck for the business. It's considered very auspicious.
Wow, interesting. What about, let's go into New Year's traditions, Chinese New Year's traditions. What's red envelopes?
Red envelope, that's one of my personal favorites. So now that I'm married, I can only give out red envelope, versus if you're not married, you can receive envelope. So you receive it from married people who are married, right? And then for businesses, when you have these grand opening, is lucky to also give out red envelopes, or during Lunar New Year, it's very good luck. So even during Lunar New Year time, I actually have a stack of red envelopes in my purse, because when I go to lunch, go to a restaurant or whatever, when I tip, I will actually give it to them in a red envelope, because I'm spreading the joy.
How much money? So how much money is in a red? How much money is in a red envelope?
It's up to you.
It's up to you.
Some
so it's whatever
it
is.
Some people put 100.
Really?
Yeah, it's really up to you.
Wow. And you have a family tradition on this, right?
Correct. So in the Asian culture, during the Lunar New Year, we actually pass out red envelopes. So you're supposed to give it to, if you're married, then you give these out to, relatives who are not married, or to your children, or to your sister's children. They have kids. And then the lucky ones can receive them. The kids, they love it, because it's literally just all cash, right? So, and then you have to, some of the etiquette of red envelope is that it needs to be, so a lot of us will go to the bank and ask for new bills. You don't want bills that are old. You want bills like crispy new bills. And actually, a lot of banks will actually give you red envelopes for free if you go early enough, because they'll give them out. And then asking for new crisp bills. And then once you receive the envelope, there's a tradition that you're not supposed to. You can't open it in front of the person who gave it to you. That's considered rude. So you're supposed to open it later when you get home, and then see how much is inside.
And is there a thank you note protocol to that, or you just take the money?
No, you could just take the money. You just smile and say, thank you so much. It's kind of, not that it's expected, but all the grandparents love doing this. So you're supposed to say something auspicious, for longevity, wishing you longevity, or wishing you good fortune. for businesses, like wishing you prosperity. So even in my own agency, during Lunar New Year, I give out red pockets to my company, to my team, my staff, and they love it because it's just free cash.
And is that kind of a business thing now in the Chinese culture to do that for business in general, or is it in openings and celebrations, or has it been changed to more than just New Year's?
Yes, the red envelope, they do that actually during the opening, because it's just good luck, right?
Yeah.
So again, you don't have to put a lot of money in the red envelope, but it's just good luck that you're spreading. So you're hoping from that spreading the good luck, you'll attract good luck.
That's really great. Let's move on to Chinese cultural business tips. Let's talk about the business card, which we all have experienced if we've done any business in Asia or in the U.S. There's a definite way that people hand out their business cards. What is that about?
It's by using both of your hands, like to pass on the gift card, the business card, and then make sure you look, you're making eye contact. And then when you get the card, look at the card. Don't just put them away. So, but the main thing is using both of your hands.
And address them by last names. What does that mean? Mr.
So Western culture, we're a little bit more casual, so we'll say, oh, hi, David, nice to meet you. But if you're doing business in China, we will actually say, hi, Mr. Adler, nice to meet you.
And does it ever get informal, or does it stay formal?
No, once you get to know them a little bit better, then yes, definitely they'll be like, oh, call me David, right? So it could, but at least initially, they like that formality, right? So if you actually go on China Airlines, they will call, whenever I go on China, they call me Miss Ma. They don't just go, Amanda.
Yeah, we're just so spoiled, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about alcohol and how you serve others. That it seems to be a very key aspect of the culture.
Yeah, so for alcohol, you never fill your own cup. It's always best to allow someone to pour for you. Say I'm the one pouring for all my guests. I want to make sure I place, again, two hands as I'm pouring the alcohol, right? So either one hand is holding the bottle, the other one is kind of holding my other arm, holding the bottle. The two hand is basically a sign of respect. So anytime you pour something, you receive something, using two hands just shows respect. And then on the receiving end, same thing. If someone was pouring me a drink and they're older or someone that's higher ranked than me, then I want to make sure I use two hands versus just one, because that is a sign of respect. Thank you so much for, pouring this for me. And then you're kind of holding the cup one side, on the side of the cup, and the other hand is now on the bottom of the cup. So, and you're a lot of time leaning towards them,
So how does that change how people are served in hotels in the U.S. and in California, where you're from? Do you have to train the staff to behave in a more respectful way, or is this just for one guest giving to another guest?
No, I would say it's more one guest giving to another guest.
So when there's a bartender in here, it's a different protocol.
Correct. But most of the time, I feel like everybody's so used to it, even for myself, right? Naturally, we use two hands. So even if I'm just because among friends, you actually could just do one hand. You actually don't have to do two hands. That's really only for people that are higher ranking for you, where you really want to show respect. But if I'm pouring something for my grandmother, for example, I better be using two hands. Otherwise, people will say something.
She'll say something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about face.
Oh, yeah. In the Chinese, there's something that we call 面子, which is face, saving face, right? We always want to save face. We never want to lose face. And also you want to give people face, which sounds a little bit funny, but you basically, what it's saying is you want to pay attention to the elders in the ranking, especially when it comes to government officials, doing business, right? If someone older than you is speaking, you should make eye contact and listen to them.
And has that culture, when people move to live in the U.S., the Chinese culture, the Asian cultures, are they using these same traditions, or as it sort of assimilated so you don't have to be as worried when you're dealing with as a client and a company?
Yes, I feel like Western, we're also very polite here, so it's not like we don't need to save face. But I think they do it. Asian culture does it a little bit differently in the fact that more so when you say no, I think Westerner, or America, we're just a little bit easier. We say no directly, right? Like, no, I'm not. I don't like that, right? Versus if you're dealing with like the Chinese, they're like, David, maybe that's not the best color for us. So they put it a little bit more well-rounded. It's not like a direct no, but they're telling you a no, but they'll say, I'm going to eat the watermelon instead of this, right? Or I like this venue a little bit more than this. But they're essentially saying no to what you're recommending, but they're not saying no directly. And that's considered saving face.
How do you get the honest truth then if everyone is saving face?
But then a lot of times you could kind of tell, right? And by the way they're saying it, and then a lot for us, we would say, okay, I see you don't really like this. You don't want square table. Is that correct? And they're like, they will eventually. And if you're not sure, I will always recommend to ask again, so you're not confused. Like, because sometimes they're just being polite, but sometimes they just really don't want the rectangular table.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like the venue that you pick,
Huh. So what about the protocol at dinner? The certain order where people sit down. Is it a little different than the way it's done here typically? Yeah.
So typically at a Chinese dinner, they have they say always the table, depending on, at a restaurant, the seat that's facing the door or like the door or the entrance, like facing out, that's like the biggest table. So you always want to make sure your guest of honor or whoever is the highest ranking sits first. And then everybody else can start filling in and sit down as well. So there's definitely an order to how you sit. You don't just randomly pick a seat.
Right. But that means place cards?
Yes, you could definitely do place cards. Or you already know. So usually when we do a lot of these like, high profile Asian events, we already know who's going, like at least the top people, like where they need to sit. So they're being escorted directly to that seat. And then, yes, another way to do it will be escort card. So they know also like you sit here too.
Great. Let's go into some general tips. Let's start with cash gifts. Is that the red envelope we talked about a little bit, right?
Yes. So, I know in the Western culture, something by giving cash is a little bit frowned upon because we consider like, oh, you didn't put any thought into it. But Asian people, they love it. You just need to put it in the red envelope. And then actually at a lot of convenience store or at banks, they sell these red envelopes or sometimes even free at the bank. So for weddings or for funerals, we actually put, the money or quote unquote the gift goes into the red envelope.
And so okay. Mm-hmm. What about now? What is this next one we're talking about? Is what's the story with clocks?
Yes, make sure you don't give out clocks because then it has a lot to do with the sound of clock. So clock in Chinese is zong, which means the end, which is interpreted to death.
You're wishing
them
death.
So that you never want to. Yeah. So and same with watches, right? Because it's the same connotation. So you don't want to give those out as gifts.
And what about a green hat?
Have you heard that one before?
What is that?
A lot of people have that. Green hat, there's such thing as when you call someone in Chinese, like you are wearing a green hat, that means they're basically either their other half had an affair, so they're kind of, it's like not their child. Like almost saying their wife had an affair and had another kid. So you're wearing a green hat. So it's very bad.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't buy anybody green hats. You don't gift green hats. Like stay away from that.
Wow. Building a memorable experience for your guest means planning every detail right. Skipster is the guest management platform designed to help you create the perfect experience, from impressive online invitations to seamless check-in at the door. Get started at Skipster, spelled ZKIPSTER.com, for a free test event. What about umbrellas and knives?
Umbrella means fan, means fall apart. So you don't want that. You don't want them to fall apart or the business to fall apart. nice is because there's such thing as like when you give a knife, then that essentially cuts your relationship.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you don't want to give a knife, right? Because you're cutting your relationship. So stay away from these things. There's so many things you could buy.
Okay.
So I do have some stuff you could buy.
Okay. Like what?
Like koi fish. That's good luck.
What is a koi fish?
You've probably seen it a lot in Japanese artwork. They're very lucky. They're like the bigger fish with beautiful patterns. But, you know, in terms of like symbols and stuff, koi fish, dragon, anything with those things on like artwork or, you know, gifts, those are always good. Like you could give those out. Or red pocket. See, that's why we resort to red pocket, because you always know people like that.
Okay, so let's go back into what you should avoid. Now, why pears?
Pears, it also sounds like separation.
Oh, interesting. In the way it's pronounced in Chinese.
Yes. So a lot like in Chinese, it's just like the way it, you know, kind of like the number 8 and the number 4, right? Or even the number 7, because 7 is like you're so mad, you're basically so angry you die. So
and the color black is also not considered a good thing.
Correct. You know, during Lunar New Year, you don't want to wear black. You want to be wearing red, like something that's a lucky color, because black is very more on the dark side. So that's a color you don't see a lot of people wearing. And I do see it because now it's like more modernized. So people maybe wear like pink. So it's kind of like red. You know, if they don't want to wear red.
Hello?
Yeah. So, so they'll do it that way.
Okay, great. Yeah. Now, here's some fun things. What to also not do in the protocol. Never stick your chopstick straight into your bowl. Okay, tell me about that.
Sure. So normally they do that at a funeral, you know, so it's actually very offensive if you do that in front of a live person. This is just very offensive, so you want to make sure you don't do that. And also make sure you're not tapping your bowl with your chopsticks, because it's basically associated with begging, you know. And then Chinese people are just very auspicious. You know, they follow the zodiac. Like when I got married, my sister, my own sister, could even be my bridal party because her zodiac animal, which is a tiger, is not favorable to mine.
Which is?
I'm a monkey.
Okay.
She's a tiger.
Okay.
And then tiger is harmful to a monkey. So she couldn't be my bridal party. But then, you know, and then during like when we had like tea ceremony for weddings and stuff, our close family, like whoever I even asked my mom, like, oh, like I didn't know you were so close to these aunties. But yes, some were really close with, and the other ones, they were invited because they have very happy marriages. So you want associate all the good and then get rid of all the bad.
So let's talk about some of the other cultures. Like in the Korean culture, you say don't wear something white in your hair.
Correct. So it kind of goes back to white in general, like, you know, no all white parties.
Right.
And someone I know, actually, when they went to Korea, they wore white scrunchie in their hair. And then people kept coming up to her and say, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for your loss. And she's like, what did I lose? You know, she's American. And she's Korean American. And she's like, I didn't lose anything. And it turns out people thought someone in her family died because she was wearing a white scrunchie on her head. Because typically in the Asian culture, again, that is associated with funeral. So sometimes they'll have like a little bow they wear. So, you know, that's why people thought someone in her family passed away.
Wow. Okay. In Thai culture, Thailand, people avoid crows and gifts with fish symbols. They're a sign of bad luck.
Yes. Yeah. So you know how we talked about in the Chinese and almost also same with Japanese, the koi or the fish is good luck. But if you're going to do business in Thailand or do an event there, make sure you stay away from crows and gifts with fish symbols, because actually in Thailand, that's considered bad luck.
That's interesting.
So I hope you guys are taking notes.
Yeah, no, we're going to have all of these on the notes. I'm going to put all of these on the notes. Let's go into omakase, which is what I do a lot now. I'm going to a lot of these type of restaurants. Tell us a little bit about the meaning of that and how it impacts in business.
So these are quite popular now. If you haven't had a chance to try, I highly recommend it. Essentially, you're it just is saying this phrase omakase is translated to I leave it up to you. So you're really leaving it up to the chef to create an experience, to curate this experience for you, and that they, usually present a series of plates from lightest and then to the heaviest dishes. But a lot of times people do have high expectations, right? Because in their omakase is not cheap. It's pretty expensive for the most part. So they're expecting something like to wow them.
And it's different than okonomi, which is the opposite, right? Omakase is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, omakase
correct. That
is.
means,
Okay.
yeah. Okonomi means
Okonomi.
you're choosing what to order.
Okay.
Yeah, which is like a la carte.
Right.
So usually, like, if you go to a Western
Right.
restaurant or a typical restaurant, you pick what you want to eat. Here, you go in a restaurant, you pay a flat fee generally, like $250, $300, $500.
Yep.
And then everybody eats the same thing. And then a lot of time the menu actually doesn't even repeat because it's all about that experience.
Right. Are you seeing that happening at events? Are they going omakase at events?
I haven't actually, because of the price.
Yes,
I would
it's
say
expensive.
more so for, when you curate a senior management corporate event,
Mm-hmm.
we'll arrange, but they go directly to the venue versus bringing that experience on site.
Right. I've learned a lot from going to those kind of restaurants. They understand experience better than anybody in our industry, I think.
Yes, there's always something like smoking or you smell something or it's
fabulous.
like just very beautifully presented.
Yes, it's great. So let's go into some of the Japanese trends, and they like to dress with care. Talk about that. What is the Japanese dressing culture like?
Sure. If you're doing, business with Japan, or if you have Japanese customer coming, or just, events you're doing here, we always recommend you dress up versus dress down. They tend to dress up a little bit more. So instead of, we love wearing sneakers, but over there, like, I would recommend you wear loafers, just more respectful. If you're not sure, I would say the least casual, you should do business casual, which is like a button-down shirt rather than just a simple T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because they really look at your attire as a sign of respect, right? Like, oh, David showed up in a suit. He must very important, and he respects me a lot.
Mm-hmm. The bowing. Let's talk about bowing, especially for when Westerners have to participate in this.
Yes. So Zojirushi, like I mentioned, that's one of our clients. And, when we met them, we bowed a lot, so much that I'm like, oh, my back kind of hurts a little. I never bowed this much, right? And then I learned very early on that the lower you bow, the more respect you're showing them. So I want to make sure I'm bowing at like a 90-degree angle, which is a lot,
That's
right?
a lot.
When you don't normally bow. And keep in mind, you have to hold your two hands with the business card. So very similar to Chinese culture.
Yes.
So I'm trying to pass them a business card, give them eye contact, and bow at the same time. And then doing this for multiple times as you meet the different people in the company.
Right. And then about rank. Talk about rank, because that's interesting, especially I want to know what happens when you're the same rank.
The same rank. I mean, then, you should still, out of respect, you should still be passing the business card with both hands.
Right.
So you don't necessarily need to do 90 degrees.
Right.
You could just bow like in a general, maybe 45 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but rank is very important, like how they sit, like, even when you're addressing someone, make sure, even like, say, David, you're my contact, right? But then your boss's boss is there. When I'm speaking to, you guys together as an audience, I need to be looking at the person who's the highest on the rank out of respect. Not to say you're not making eye contact to everybody else, but, because they are the highest ranking in the business or for the company. So you have to make sure like you give them that attention.
And talk about the people sticking to last names, and they use the honorific san. What does that mean? Talk about that in terms of the difference in Japanese culture.
I think it just goes back to, out of respect, and then so you go Tanaka-san, Adler-san, Ma-san.
And what does san actually
stand?
What does san stand for? Actually, what is the translation?
That I actually don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's another good one. It's not customary for Japanese businessmen to bring their wives. If you're traveling with a spouse, don't assume that an invitation includes both you and them.
Mm-hmm.
Ask in a way that eliminates the need for direct refusal. Give us an example of that.
So a lot of times when we do business, here, I think the Western culture is like, if you invite, we're all going together, especially for events where it's like husband, wife, you get to invite a spouse, right? So we just assume our spouse is coming. But this particular culture, a lot of them actually don't bring their wives along. So then, a lot of times when you want to check in, again, out of respect, because remember, you don't want them to give them a hard time, so they have to say no to you. So you have to make sure you ask in a very well-rounded way so that it's like, oh, is spouses also part of this? Like, is my wife also? And if not, it's okay. Like, you're just checking in.
You're checking
right?
in. Right?
But be sure you give them a way to say, it's just husbands only or just the men's only.
So, okay, the next section here is very dear to my heart. Sake. Tell us about the sake culture and how it actually is part now of, we're seeing this everywhere here in the U.S. in big ways.
So it's definitely on the rise. There's actually over 2,000 sake, out there. So you guys should definitely try. There's like hot ones and there's cold ones. Make sure some of the etiquette when it comes to sake is that make sure when you pour, again, kind of like the Chinese culture, don't fill your own cup. It's better to, allow someone else to pour for you, and then you could pour for someone else as well. And very similar to the Asian culture, Chinese culture, where you should be doing it with two hands.
Yeah.
And then the sake cup is actually very small, so I would recommend you to pour slowly because you don't want to fill it to the brim.
Okay.
And then spill it, right? On the receiving end, same thing. Like when you're receiving the sake, you want to make sure one hand is holding the cup and the other one is on the bottom of the cup, and then again it's two hands, and then it shows respect, right? And then when you guys want to do cheers in Japanese, it's called kanpai. So that's how you can do the cheers. So
and is it a clicking of the glasses in the same way, or is it? It is okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So let's
but don't do it too hard.
Don't do it for what?
Don't do it too hard.
Too hard, okay.
Yes, because there's only a little bit. So if you spill, it's like half of them is gone.
And there's millions of different types of sake. We won't even get into that right now. So let's talk about entertaining in restaurants. Most entertaining is done in restaurants and bars, and you're not invited to someone's home. But is that the case on the business side as well?
Yeah, just, because I think a lot of times they're pretty private. Right. So they, a lot of times just more comfortable doing it at a restaurant or at a bar. And don't just assume, if you have a good time, then they're going to invite you to their house.
And then what's the protocol at the house?
I think, so if you are invited to their house, we want to make sure you know these etiquettes. One of them is making sure you bring a small gift along. Like any, good business person always have some good small gifts such as alcohol or some dessert or sweets that you could bring. Do make sure you remove your shoes. So unlike in the Western culture, like at home you wear shoes, but in the Japanese culture, they actually take off their shoes, and then a lot of times the host will provide slippers. So you can wear slippers inside their home. It's to keep their home clean. They don't want to bring the dirt in.
Right. And what about asymmetrical numbers or preferred over even ones?
Yeah, so depending on, unlike the Chinese, I guess here they really like, the odd numbers versus the even numbers. And then a lot of times, although the number 9 is avoided, because just like the Chinese culture, 9 is associated with suffering. So, like for example, so if you were to bring a gift, don't bring 9, right? And then a lot of times you always say you bring dessert, like 6 cupcakes, right? Instead of bringing 6, because there's 6 people, which makes sense. I bring 6 cupcakes for 6 people. You actually would bring 7, because 7 is a luckier number.
I see.
They like odd numbers.
I see. Number 9 is avoided. Yes. Pointing at someone is considered rude. I guess that's everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say for a lot of culture, that's rude. So that's not just like for Japanese, but like especially more so. You definitely want to be able to use your hand, wave in the general direction versus just like pointing at the person, like, oh, I'm talking about that person, or I'm pointing. That's very rude.
Let's move on to what are some of the fun and unique ways our listeners can incorporate food and entertainment into these types of events?
Sure, we do see this a lot. So I'm so glad we're beyond the spring rolls and fried rice and noodles. I think with the more and more the growth of the Asian population in America in general, and also to be able to introduce, like more people are open to the different like fun food elements. So a lot of times, like recently at some of our events, we've done like fried popcorn chicken for bank opening. We actually did a dim sum station. So instead of spring rolls, we did dim sum station because it was like 10 to 12. So that was super fun.
Mm-hmm.
We also done, a ramen bar, potato sword, that's like Korean. We done takoyaki. So a lot of Asian food has a lot, like street food is very popular in the Asian culture.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of these ones I'm talking about, they have to do with like the street food, right? But we all heard about event industry serving the rubber chicken.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm here, another rubber chicken. Like my husband also asked me, oh, how was dinner? I'm like, you mean rubber chicken? Like it was fine, right? Like if you were to say it's good, then that means the hotel really went above and beyond. Because normally it's just good. Like, but I don't consider that a food experience. Mm-hmm. Here, we're kind of bringing the Asian culture in. So some of the ones I mentioned about the ramen bar, the octopus balls, the Japanese pancakes, the dim sum station. And for dessert, like boba is so popular now. So we've done like boba bars at a hotel opening. We've done these like bubble waffles. They're really fun. For summers, you could do like a shaved ice or like a tofu pudding. And these are all really delicious. And I think mochi ice cream has been around long enough. They even sell them at Trader Joe's.
And
right? But
yes, I saw those.
Yeah.
And even drinks. Let's go to it. What's a boba bar?
Boba bar, they're like milk tea. So very popular now in Los Angeles and a lot other parts of the United States. They're just essentially milk tea, but they sometimes have also a lot of other very unique flavor. It could be like strawberry, it could be mango. And then they put these tapioca balls inside the drink.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah, so those are, and then you just make it into a boba bar. So it's a very cute, and like we usually do about like 3 flavors because we don't want to give them too many choices because oftentimes like will overwhelm them. Other ones are really fun would be like a matcha bar or like a matcha ice cream. Those are also really popular too.
And talk about the sake ceremony.
Yes, David, you love sake.
I know, I'm a big sake guy.
So for this one, when we did one of our Japanese clients' event, it was their 30th anniversary celebration. We did a sake ceremony. And the sake ceremony, a lot of times you actually don't drink directly out of the barrel. But for the sake ceremony, it's really, it's a celebratory event. So you break the lid, and then from there, and by using like a wooden mallet, and then once you break it, the sake in there is used to serve all your attendees. And it's really fun watching our clients break the sake barrel and then like having it served to all the guests that are there.
It's a great idea. And so here are some of the entertainment and activities with food. And I guess food, is it all food? Sugar, candy art, or is that not? It's entertainment.
Yeah. It's actually entertainment.
Just
you
entertainment.
Can't eat it.
Okay, you can't. Okay,
yes,
so I'm going to scratch this.
It's sugar art.
Okay.
Yes. And even the Kardashians are, jumping on the bandwagon because she actually had an event and then they did sugar art, candy art at their holiday event. Because essentially they use these art and then they turn it into like figurines. So like this master, we call it the master, he can make like a monkey, he can make a dragon, whatever you want him to make, he can pretty much make it. And it sits on a stick. So it's actually really cool. And you could give it out to guests. Kids love it. It was actually quite fun.
That's really great. Let's move on to tell us about the Lunar New Year celebration. When is it? And what do we expect from this year? Or did we just...
Sure. So upcoming in 2020, normally is at the end of January or beginning of February. So you should check your calendar. It's based off of the lunar calendar. That's why it's not the same day every year. So for next year is actually January 25th, 2020. And we're entering into the year of the rat, actually.
And the brands are tapping into this. You're seeing a lot more of that. Everyone's celebrating it.
Yeah, because, when the Asian population is growing, right? So marketers are very smart. They want to tap into the Asian market and also tap into their disposable income, so they'll spend. To give you a perfect example would be Disneyland, right? So actually at Disneyland, for those of you that are Disney fans out there, they even have a Lunar New Year festivity now, right? So from January 17 to February 9, 2020, and this calendar is actually already out. And they have lots of activities that they have planned out for Lunar New Year. For example, like the Mulan Lunar New Year procession. They have like Meet the Disney character to bring the good cheer. And then from my own personal friend, she's a huge Disney fan, and they were giving out like specific Lunar New Year edition, like whether it's like keychain or pins, so people could collect them.
And tell us a little bit about the Year of the Rat. What kind of person relates to that?
Sure. So if you're Year of the Rat, so how you know you're Year of the Rat if you're born in 2008, 1996, 84, 72, 60, 48, you're the rat. And then based on the Chinese zodiac, actually they say the people who are the rat personality, basically you're very quick-witted, you're very resourceful, you're smart. However, you lack a little bit of courage.
There's always a downside to everything, right?
Yes.
But they're also quick-witted, resourceful, versatile, kind, smart, and lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And they have...
Yeah, and you could just, Google, this is pretty common now, so you could kind of see. Yeah, and people actually look it up to see, this is like different zodiac animal, like has different characteristic traits.
And so the big holidays now, what are the big holidays now, the Chinese holidays, and how are they invading North American culture?
This is very important. Just like when we plan around an event, we want to make sure it doesn't conflict with any major big holiday, right? Like Thanksgiving or Christmas when people are not here. So keep in mind, I think one is like either to tap into the opportunity or two, to make sure that, you don't host, like if you were going to host a big event in China, you don't want to be doing it on their National Day Golden Week because the whole week they're off.
Uh-huh.
Like everybody's off.
Uh-huh.
They're not working. So you don't want to be hosting an event during that time, like a conference, for example, right? So you could very easily also find this online. Like Chinese New Year is something, a lot of brands are now tap into doing like Lunar New Year events and marketing to the Asian market. Indonesian, they have a big event from June 14 to 16. Japan, there's a Bon Festival, which takes place in August. And then the Moonlight Festival, which is usually early October. That's for the Chinese culture. And right now, as we speak, the LA Arboretum has the Moonlight Festival that's going on. So that's another way, like they have tapped into this particular demographic, like because they're marketing to this demographic. They know they'll come. And also, it's usually a time you spend with your family and loved ones.
Wow. So this has really been an incredible journey, and I believe that this podcast is going to have a lot of life, because the minute you have to deal with these kind of cultures, you should listen to this podcast. And these are tips that I think will survive the test of time. They certainly have in your world, right, Amanda? This is the way you have to do it. And protocol is an important thing because people know how to behave in different ways because of the protocol that's been established over years and years and years. So as we end, Amanda, how do people get in touch with you, and what would be a great reason to call you? Of course, to plan an event is number one.
Yes, so you can reach me at Amanda at innovatemkg.com. And if you're planning to host any multicultural event, definitely give us a ring. A lot of these insights will help you, make sure your brands are sensitive to these cultural sensitivities and make sure you have the upper hand and tapping into a new market as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Amanda, so much. And we wish you well and look forward to doing this again sometime soon.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you, David.
Thanks. Thank you, Amanda.
Okay, we're back. David, so are you getting your red envelopes ready?
She sent me a whole series of things over the holidays, red envelopes and all these different treats to get a sense of what she was talking about. It was very interesting to see it for real.
Terrific. So you're ready.
I'm ready.
I learned a lot. I knew beforehand about the auspiciousness of the number 8, for instance, but I did not know about the aversion to number 4 and how that could translate to skipping tables, number 4, as well as 40 through 49, or being mindful of your gift giving as it relates to symbolic items, like don't give a knife as a gift because that represents severing your relationship. So that was really interesting. And this is a primer on various aspects of protocol for specific agent cultures, but the bottom line message for planners here is to be mindful of protocol, right? And ask how your clients feel about it. And if you're not well-versed in this, you may need to hire a company who is.
And I do believe we want to do a whole series of these types of evergreen content so that when you actually do have a different group that you don't know enough about, you can just go to the GatherGeeks podcast and get your research done with our help.
We'll build your library.
Yep. So, Beth, what else is going on as we start the new year at BizBash?
Oh, we're so thrilled because our first issue of BizBash Best Canada it's out in the world. We have birthed this issue. We've been working on it for a long time and are so proud to have this first issue dedicated to Canadian venues. And we specifically focus on the cities of Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. Plus, we have the list that's going to get all of the Canadian meeting and event community talking, which is the first Canada 250. It's a list of the country's top 250 event professionals. Canadian subscribers should receive this in their physical mailboxes while everyone else can look for it in their email inbox.
And I am going to be in Edmonton on the 20th for Go West, 20th and 21st, I believe. And we featured on the cover what did we feature on the cover, Beth?
It's the JW Marriott Edmonton Ice District.
And I can't wait to go see that in the flesh.
Excellent. Well, great.
Well, before we end, we'd like to thank everybody that helped make this podcast successful. Rebecca Pappas for distributing it and getting it to you. Claire Hoffman for doing our editorial duties on this. And of course, Dave Nelson, our producer. Thank you all and hope you have a wonderful, wonderful 2020. 2020.
Great.
It's amazing.
Gather on, David.
Gather on.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter @GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on.